Learning Kodshim with you just seems such a privilege. It just seems such an honor. As I've been thinking about it, as we learned in the Psicha, in the opening to Kodshim, of approaching, and in this learning, approaching the Kodesh Kedoshim, as the Tiferet Yisrael said, one is approaching the Holy of Holies. A lot of people want to go up to the place of the Beis HaMikdash, and the whole political issues, as we know about that, the need to go to the Beis HaMikdash. This is going to the Beis HaMikdash. What more authentic way is there to go to the Beis HaMikdash than to learn Kodshim and to engage ourselves in this whole world, as strange as it feels to us? But that's what the Beis HaMikdash is. It's a world which is different and separated. That's what the Kedusha means. It's separate from our day-to-day existences. And to be able to take ourselves in there, and I know for many of you and many of the people listening, this is so remote from day-to-day experience, but allow yourselves to venture into this place of unfamiliarity, into this place of fantasy, and I don't mean that in a sense of fiction at all, chas v'sholom, but just in the sense of so different from what we're accustomed to. And it looks like something so irrelevant to our day-to-day life, but we learn so much from it. We understand so much from it as we allow ourselves to engage with it. So the fact that we can take our minds and our imagination and our thoughts into a place that we can't take our bodies, to take ourselves into a place that we otherwise wouldn't be able to access is just such an amazing privilege. The shir has been sponsored by David and Chana Wallace, who are regular. Both of them listen to the shir every single day, and they run Kosher Travelers. I'll be doing their Pesach program at Rhodes next year, so if anybody wants to carry on learning Matmonim live during Pesach on the island of Rhodes, get hold of the Wallaces, and I haven't spoken to them, but try it out. Ask them for a special Matmonim discount, and hopefully we'll be able to negotiate something for the Matmonim community. And he said it's dedicated to all fellow Matmonim fans and the safe return home of all our soldiers and hostages. A gift does not cancel indebtedness. Mertzin lama Bain. Zevachim Daf Yomi Zevachim. Sometimes a person might owe you something. He might owe you money, he might owe you an apology. And he doesn't do that. He doesn't apologize and he doesn't pay his debt, but he gives you a gift. He gives you a beautiful gift. That's nice. You can accept the gift, but it doesn't mitigate the indebtedness. And we'll see that in understanding these principles. There are two important psukim in all of these dapim, the first few pages of Masechta Zevachim. The one is Zot HaTorah lo'olah lamincha lo'chatat lo'asham ve'lamiluim ve'lazevach hashlamim. The Torah here packages all the korbanot together and treats them like shlamim. And the Gemara on Daf Dalet learns that means to say that just as in shlamim, it has to be l'shem kodesh and l'shem bailim, the korban has to be brought lishma, as we've been learning. So with all the korbanot, they have to be brought lishma. And the second one is motzas vatecha tishmo v'asita kasher nadat al Hashem elokecha nedava shedibarta b'ficha. From that we learn that if it wasn't brought lishma, the korban is still kosher. You haven't done your obligation, you've still got to bring another korban, but the korban is still kosher. And we learnt in the opening Mishnah, Kol hazvachim shnizbechu shelo lishman ksherin, that even though a zevach, a korban, was slaughtered, was shechted, not for the right intention, not for the right purpose, and lishma, the korban still remains kosher. And according to the Tana Kama, that applies even to an asham. It doesn't apply to a chatat, but it does apply to an asham. And asham is a form of sin offering. A chatat is the main sin offering. An asham is a different kind of sin offering. And even an asham is kosher, even if it wasn't brought l'shem bailim. And Rabbi Eliezer disagrees with that. Our Gemara then, there's a strange discussion. So we've already learned from the two psukim above that all korbanot have to be brought lishma, they have to be brought for the right purpose. And if they're not brought for the right purpose, it's still a good korban. We know that already. Asks Reish Lakish, and the Gemara is a strange image of Reish Lakish. Rami Reish Lakish al ma'ohi bei midrashu makshi. Reish Lakish laid down, prostrated himself on the floor of the Beis HaMedrash with his face downwards, in other words, total prostration, and said in the Beis HaMedrash, I have a problem, I have a difficulty. What's worrying Reish Lakish so much that he lies down on the floor of the Beis HaMedrash in order to ask his question? Im kesherim heim yeratzu v'mein meratzin lama boim. Asks Reish Lakish, I don't get it. How can you bifurcate the korban? Either it's good or it isn't good. If it's a good korban, why doesn't it release the owner of his obligations? Why doesn't it bring about kapara? Why doesn't it bring about atonement? And if it's not good for atonement, what is it good for? This is a korban hasham. You're bringing it for a sin. And what are you saying? No, it's not. It doesn't work for the sin. So why bring the korban? What does it do? Its purpose is for the sin offering, says Reish Lakish. The Gemara then goes, Rabbi Eliezer tries to show him there are cases where we bifurcate. Reish Lakish refutes that answer, and eventually Reish Lakish says, Elo Amar Reish Lakish at the end there, Eftach ana pitchoi lenafshoi, I'll answer. Since you couldn't answer me, I'll answer myself. It's a very dramatic. He lies down on the floor and asks this dramatic question. Nobody can give him a satisfactory answer. He says, okay, so I'll answer myself. He brings the posuk of Motzis Vatecha Tishmo V'asita. And he answers it the same way as we answered before. He brings the posuk and says, but there's a posuk in the Torah that says, although the korban doesn't work for what it was designed to do, that is ritzui, that is to remove your obligation from you, but the korban is still kosher as an adova. It's still a donation to the Beis Hamikdash, a donation to Hashem. It's a gift to Hashem, and Hashem accepts your gift, and you bring another korban afterwards. We have a posuk. But we knew we had a posuk. What's Reish Lakish getting so upset about? We knew. And what's he added in his answer? Says Rashi, he hasn't yet learned how we use that posuk to explain the Mishnah. It's the Gemara is not sequential. It's not the way the Gemara is constructed. It's not necessarily sequential. So he hasn't yet learned. This is where he develops this idea that we've learned from the second pasuk of Motzes Vatecha Tishmor. We learn that the korban works. Tosfos doesn't go that way at all. Tosfos says on the previous page, at the bottom of Daf Daled, "V'nireh de parich mikoach svara ke'en kushir de Reish Lakish de lekame." The Gemara's question at the bottom of Daf Daled, says Tosfos, is like Reish Lakish's question here on Daf Hey, our Reish Lakish. That's Reish Lakish lying down on the ground and asking his question. And where does the question come from? Says Tosfos, de parich mikoach svara. He's asking from logic. This is not from ignorance. He's not asking because he doesn't know the posuk the way Rashi learns. Now, Tosfos on Zevachim, Tosfos everywhere is so crucially important to our learning. Tosfos on Zevachim is mostly Tosfos Rabbeinu Baruch, who's the Baal HaTruma, the Sefer HaTrumas, 13th century, a late Baal Tosfos, contemporary of the Maharam Mirutenberg, Talmud of the Ri, a very authoritative Tosfos. And it's interesting that whereas Rashi says, Akati lo kamale time, he doesn't know the posuk, because otherwise it's very difficult to understand Reish Lakish's question. He's got a posuk after all. Why is he asking the question? But Tosfos says, no, he's asking the svara. What does it mean he's asking the svara? What's he mean he's asking the logic? There's a posuk. And this is a very important part for our opening into Kodshim. All of these shirim are all good openings into Kodshim. Because one of the things people find so difficult with Kodshim, and some people love about Kodshim, is as much as we use logic in the rest of Shas, we don't use logic in Kodshim. It's all based on psukim. It's very mathematical. The rest of Shas is philosophical. This part of Shas is mathematical. You've got axioms, you've got principles, you apply them, you don't apply them, you deduce them, it's a very exacting science, Kodshim. It's very different from the other parts of Shas. But here we see from this Tosfos an amazing thing. No, in Kodshim you also use logic. Reish Lakish is teaching you that in Kodshim you use logic as well. How do you use logic? At the end of the day, there's a posuk. I understand Rashi saying you must say he hasn't learned the posuk yet, or this application of the posuk yet, that he's now learning. You have to say that because it doesn't work with logic. There's a posuk, there's a verse in the Torah. If there's a verse in the Torah, that's an axiom. You can't argue with it. No, says Tosfos, you can. What does that mean? Explains the Shita Mukubetzis. The Shita Mukubetzis brings the Tosfos Rabbeinu Peretz. And Tosfos Rabbeinu Peretz says an amazing thing. Haya oseh atzmo ki'ilu haya mesupak ikra la'akevo lemitzvah. It's all very well, says Reish Lakish. But let's pretend we don't know. This links to the Tuesday night shir on Tshuva and on Vidui. We only know what we know. We don't know what we don't know. How about putting yourself into the position of not knowing? How about learning like a child sometimes, being really curious? When the Torah says you need lishmo. In all korbanos, you need the korban to be lishmo for its the right purpose, the right korban, the right owner. You need that. Does that mean lechatchila you need it, or does that mean even b'di'evid? That is so important that if that's missing, the whole korban is possible. Now, yes, we know from the Gemara, it kind of works it out. Bet Reish Lakish haya oseh atzmo ke'ilu haya mesupak. The truth is, Reish Lakish is not in doubt, because we have the psukim and we have the limud, we have the learning. But let's put ourselves in doubt. And Reish Lakish is teaching us how to learn kodshim. That when you learn kodshim, don't satisfy yourself just by saying there's a posuk that says this, there's a verse, there's another verse that says that. Both verses can't be saying the same thing, therefore it must be saying something different. This is that's how kodshim is often learned. Says Reish Lakish, no. Asa atzmo ose atzmo ki'ilu haya mesupak. Question the verses themselves. Question the psukim themselves. Go into it. Use your logic. Don't abandon logic just because you're learning kodshim. Here there's a place for logic as well. Vaya kashelo manavshach. And he asks, what difference does it make? And the Shita Mukubetzet explains that the main kashi, ikar akusha, to Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, mihayde komar im einan meratzim lama boim. If a korban asham can't reduce the indebtedness of the bringer, why bring it? What is its purpose? That's the power, that's his real kasha. That's what Reish Lakish is really going on about. And then he answers with the second pasuk. So again, we've got to say, so what is the second pasuk? You're saying, okay, I'm not sure what the first pasuk means. So then, we've learned that already. But what Reish Lakish is saying is an amazing idea. Reish Lakish is saying, this which the first pasuk says that a korban must be brought lishma, even a korban asham has to be brought lishma, for the purpose of the korban, for the sin for which it's covering, for the person for whom it's covering, as a korban asham, all korbanot have to be brought lishma. The fact is, it is lechatchila and b'di'evet, which means that if it isn't done, the korban is pasul. Even though the Mishnah says it's just not oile the bailim, the Mishnah says it's okay. No, says Reish Lakish, it's posul. And that's why the Rambam says, Shalosh machshavot hen sheposlin et hakorbanot, we learned in the second shir. There are three machshavot, and one of it is Shinui Hashem, sheposlim et hakorbanot, they make the korbanot posul. Where does the Rambam get it from? He gets it from Reish Lakish. Explains Rabbi Lapin, we'll meet him often during kodshim, and I'll explain to you more about him. He only died, he survived the war. He's one of these people who spans the generations. He was a Godel B'Yisrael before the war, and he was a Godel B'Yisrael in New York. He taught Torah for many years until he died rather young. And a wonderful Rosh Yeshiva who has both the Brisker background and the Lomdische background of the school of Reb Shimon. So he's a wonderful person to learn. And he explains that when the korban is done shelo lishma, that korban is dead. It's possible. It's not the korban still okay for an adov. You can still bring the korban. No, the korban's done. That's why the Rambam says, Shalosh machshavot en sheposlin. And that's what Reish Lakish means when he says, from the second pasuk you learn that the first pasuk means that if it's not lishma, it's not a korban. However, you learn from the second korban, from the second pasuk, that you can bring it as a new korban. It's reborn in a new status. It's dead as a korban osham, and it gets reborn as a new korban nedova. That's what the Torah teaches us. This is something completely new. And that the Rebbeinu Shalom accepts the nedova from the person. I can't accept your korban osham because you didn't do it right. We discussed on Tuesday night, that shir will go up before Shabbos. We discussed on Tuesday night how meticulous a vidui has to be. When you're doing tshuva, you can't leave things out. When you're doing tshuva, every detail has to be in it. And so a korban chatos has to be absolutely lishmo. A korban osham also has to be absolutely lishmo. And if a korban osham isn't lishmo, it's not that it's okay, you can bring it as an adova. No, it's done. You haven't brought your korban. This particular animal, Hashem says, you're all excited, you brought a korban, I'm not going to reject it. Bring the korban as an adova, that's great, thank you. But now you still have to bring a chatos. You haven't said sorry yet. You haven't apologized yet. You haven't done tshuva yet. That you've got to do again because it wasn't lishmo. When you do tshuva, it has to be lishmo. You've got to mention, as the Rambam mentioned on Tuesday night, you've got to mention the avero, what you did, when you did it, to who you did it. When you're doing tshuva, it has to be very meticulous and very precise. And so with all the korbanos, but with the korban oshim particularly, it has to be very, very precise. When it's not precise, explains Rabbi Lapin, with which we can understand the Shita Mukubetzis and the Tosfos, that what Reish Lakish is teaching us is that the first pasuk that teaches us that all of these things have to be lishmo. If it's not lishmo, it's not a korban oshim. However, the second pasuk teaches us, V'asita Hashem nadata l'Hashem Elokecha nedava. You can still use the animal for a new korban called a korban nedava, but the original one is not there. You've given the nedava, the Rebbeinu Shem has accepted the nedava, but you still have to bring the korban chatos. If you owe an apology to somebody, you can give them gifts, and it's very lovely and it's very wonderful. The fact that they accept the gifts doesn't mean they've forgiven you. They've given you, they accepted the gifts. That's very nice. The responsibility to request forgiveness and to ask for mechila applies even if one has a generous relationship with the other person, even if you're close friends. There's still, if something's been done wrong, we still have to bring the korban loy olulei lebailim. The nedova, this gift does not satisfy the requirement of bringing a korban asham.